questions. So does anybody have a question for either the Minister, Secretary of State, or both? Oh, yeah, I see one there. And it would be very helpful to them if you could say who you are, who you represent, and please be brief because time is tight. Please, sir.
My name is Kevin Kelly. I'm the editor of the European Supermarket magazine and the publisher of Checkout, Retail Intelligence and Hospitality Ireland. In today's Irish Times, Mr. Coveney, the question of the closure and the possible opening of a sugar beet business again has been raised. The European Court of Auditors in 2010 said it was a major mistake to close down the sugar business in Ireland. Are you positive about the opportunities that exist for reinvesting in that industry?
Okay, if you bear with me just a minute, I'll see if there are any more as time is tight. Does anybody else want to come in at this stage? Okay, perhaps, Minister, if you could pick up on that one.
Yeah, well, just first of all, thanks for the question, Kevin. Just for the purposes of accuracy, what the European Court of Auditors said was that some of the data that was used for the basis of making decisions in sugar reform back in 2006 was outdated. They didn't say that it was a major mistake in relation to Ireland or anywhere else. But having said that, I happen to believe it was. But that's a different issue. In my view, there is more than a possibility that we may be able to recreate a sugar industry, a sugar processing industry in Ireland, but only if it makes commercial sense to do so. And I have met two consortia in particular who are anxious to try and do that, and they have done a lot of preparatory work in that regard. But none of that can happen unless there is a sugar regime in the European Union that can facilitate it. At the moment, we are due to end the sugar quota regime in 2015, and countries like Ireland were compensated to actually exit from that sugar regime under sugar reform back in 2006. And so what needs to happen before we can even talk seriously about a sugar industry in Ireland again is either an end to sugar quotas, as I think both Owen and I would like to see, or else some form of redistribution of quota. And I don't think the second is realistic. So I have pushed hard during the Irish presidency to try and end the sugar quota system, which is essentially a protected market, which I don't think makes sense in the context of the need for more sugar and more competitively produced sugar. And so what we got agreement on in the Council of Ministers was that a date of 2017 for the end of sugar quotas would be agreed, even though a lot of countries were pushing very hard for 2020 to protect existing systems that are there. The European Parliament is looking for a date of 2020, and we are anxious to try and stick to our position around 2017 to give this industry some certainty, and hopefully we'll get agreement on that by the end of next month.
Thank you very much indeed. There's a question here. Please, sir.
Thank you. Can I just very quickly
Yes,
mention on
please,
sugar?
yes, please do. Sorry, Secretary of State, it was just a very specific one.
Particularly grateful for Simon for the difficult stance he's had to follow on sugar. We are absolutely clear. There was an EU agreement in 2006 to end quotas in 2015. I think it's very important for the integrity of EU decision-making that we stick to decisions. But what I call regressive tendencies in some powerful nation states, member states, have been pushing to ignore that agreement and go for 2020, in which case we will never stick a stake through this thing's heart. It'll be into the next round. And just to give you an idea, our sugar processors, our confectionery industry, they have to pay 35% above what they would do if we had a free market in this material. And the market's out there. China last year increased its imports from 600 million sterling to 1.2 billion sterling. So this is an absolute iconic case for us in the CAP. If we're going to follow the progress set in train by McSharry, continued by Fischler, it is absolutely vital we put a stake through the sugar regime and we have a free market, which I very much, Simon, will get through as 2017.
Thank you very much indeed, Secretary of State. Please, sir.
Thank you. It's David Gray from the University of Nottingham. Congratulations on the silver medal. By DEFRA. We actually got a gold medal for a display on Feed the World, so just a quick plug on. Just a quick question. Quick question to Simon. I'm involved, obviously, at the University of Nottingham in research and education in terms of the triangle. You quoted some very impressive figures in terms of increasing the number of students involved in food-related degree courses in Ireland. Can I just ask you a question? Is there anything that's triggered that increase or stimulated that increase in number?
Quick thought on that.
Yeah, no, well, I'm really glad you asked that question, because I think sometimes we talk about Ireland and the UK as if the attitude of the food industries are the same on both sides of the Irish Sea. I'm not sure that's the case. We discussed this last night. I actually, was educated in the UK. My agricultural science degree is from an English university, and I do think that there is a different attitude towards the industry in Ireland now. There actually wasn't during the so-called boom years in Ireland, but that has really changed in the last few years. If you look at the number of students going to agricultural colleges, for example, in terms of wanting to farm and produce food, back in 2006, that figure was 600. We were looking at closing agricultural colleges in different parts of the country. It's now 1,500, and we actually don't have enough places in agricultural colleges. Many of the young Irish students are going to places like Cirencester and Harper Adams and universities and so on. So there is an excitement in Ireland around the food industry, partly because other sectors that people saw as exciting were built on foundations of sand, quite frankly, particularly around the construction industry. And so there is a new excitement around food. And they look at companies, some of which I named earlier, as the leading Irish companies now. And they want to be part of that. They want to be the next Stan McCarthy. They want to be the next, well, let me not give too many names because people start taking offense. But there is, in my view, if you go to a graduation ceremony in UCD now, around the whole, food science related courses from, human nutrition to dairy nutrition to sports nutrition to dairy science and so on. Likewise in UCC. You will have people coming up to you afterwards, literally telling you their ambitions of wanting to change the world in terms of food innovation. I don't want to over-egg that, because I think we still have a journey to travel in terms of delivering on the potential within universities, but certainly in terms of career choice now in Ireland, because of what's happened to us and our economy in the last 5 years, and because of what has happened to the food industry in that time. I mean, in the last 3 years, the value of food exports out of Ireland has increased by 30% in the midst of a recession, both in Ireland and in other parts of Europe. So young people are smart. They look at careers that they can now believe in a sustainable way. And I really do think you can create that excitement in the UK also.
Okay.
But there needs to be a change of attitude towards it.
Thank you. And Secretary of State, if I could broaden that out as well. I know you want to come in, but also we talked, a lot of talk also, we talk about skills a lot, but also about entrepreneurship. And we're going to talk about entrepreneurial mindsets later. My question really is, as well as skills, how do we create more of that entrepreneurial workforce that we've already heard from some of our speakers this morning we need for the future? Just to add to that.
I think that's one of the most important things you can talk about today is how we do get the image of this industry up. It is our largest manufacturing industry in the UK, but the glamour goes to big shiny metal things. So it's our aerospace industry or our motor industry. Near me, Harper Adams is now a university. It's our first agricultural university, with huge investment from JCB, who got this extraordinarily successful business making metal diggers. But how do we somehow get in there? We should have food businesses there with bursaries. We should have food businesses, long-term development programs, working really closely with our universities. So I very much hope, it's brilliant you're here today. This is how I think we've got to push this along. It was really shocking last night to sit next to a CEO of an extremely successful company, which straddles the Irish Sea, really big on both sides. He would take on 50 skilled trainees this afternoon, straight away. Now, we've got this big apprentice scheme going in the country. We are bringing them on. We're just not going fast enough. And if we're going to really hit these targets, the 2020 FDF, you've got a similar target to 2020, if we're going to get there and help contribute to the feeding the 6 billion up to the 9 billion, we've got to get more really bright people in. And I think to answer your question, we've got to get up the sort of glamour of this. It's got to be an exciting industry. Now, you and we've got some absolute world-class brands, but we've just got to get the people out there. And I think we've got to have more high-profile stuff, perhaps more prizes, more big public events where politicians and the industry and the universities can highlight the excitement. I mean, I think I just quoted 6,000 innovative products a year. You don't get 6,000 new cars launched a year.
Okay, I'm going to try and squeeze in just one more because we really are running out of time and the ministers will have to leave. Please, sir.
Alan Minnick from UCD. And we've heard some very impressive innovation in very large companies this morning before you arrived. But we also heard that 90% of companies are SMEs that are working in food business. And some work we did in Scotland found that a barrier perceived to innovation was these companies getting access to funds to help them start up and become more innovative in their procedures. I just wondered what your views are on what government can do to help SMEs access funds to help innovation.
Okay, and if I could just add to that by way of a concluding question, he's asking about something governments can do. If you had one message for this room and for the industry, focusing on realising the potential for collaboration and innovation, what would it be by way of a final word? I will this time, because you've answered first each time, Secretary of State first and then a last word to the Minister. Secretary of State.
I think the most important thing is to make this an exciting industry which bright young people want to go into and put it right up there alongside aerospace, alongside the country, alongside the media, alongside filmmaking. And I think that actually answers your question as well, because if it's seen to be profitable and exciting and successful, the money will flow.
Thank you very much. Minister.
Yeah, I just want to agree on the SME issue. I mean, even though we have and continue to attract the top names in the food industry globally, the Nestlés, the Danones, and obviously big Irish food multinationals now also in terms of investing here. I mean, the two biggest investment announcements in the Irish economy last year and this year are both from food companies. One from Glanbia this year, from Kerry last year. And indeed, some of the beef companies as well have announced very significant investment plans. So that type of, I think the best way to create excitement in an SME sector is to actually continue to show examples of large companies that have been successful, because small companies want to be like that. And then we actually have to help them climb that ladder. And that's why we have programs through Bord Bia, through Enterprise Ireland, working with Teagasc within universities. We essentially have incubation programs for small food companies to try and make them medium-sized food companies and then break that glass ceiling, which is the most difficult part, to move from medium to large for companies because of the level of capital investment that's required and the banking environment at the moment, which is very difficult in terms of getting that level of capital. And the restrictions that we have now that we didn't have 10 or 15 years ago in terms of European competition law around grant aid. So that is a real challenge for us in terms of finding a way of the private sector and the public sector together, finding a way of financing and mentoring and leading companies in the right direction. But that's happening. There's some really innovative programs doing that at the moment. In terms of what I would ask of you, bluntly, we want to be challenged as policymakers. We have a business plan for growth. We want to see that delivered. But I would say, particularly from the conversations I had last night and some of the conversations I had this morning, I think we need more tailored design within our universities and third level sector of the kind of courses that will deliver the people that you need to take your companies forward. And I would like to see more direct interaction at a very senior level from companies in the UK and Ireland with universities in the UK and Ireland that already have a good base of expertise to build on that and take it to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you join me in thanking the Minister, the Secretary of the State, very much indeed. Thank you. You have both highlighted how important this issue is and why today's summit is so important. We will focus on concrete. We will focus on next steps. We will report back to both of you. We're immensely grateful to you for taking the time, for being with us here today. So thank you very much.